Hey my beautiful bitches, it's me, Fiona St. James, and welcome to another episode of Fiona's Coffee Talks. And as always, I like to start off every day with a fresh, hot, black cup of coffee. Hold the cream! I'd love to. Of course, in my new favorite mug, which is my logo to my channel. Coffee, of course, with no Kahlua, because who knew? Stranger things have happened, right? And I always think of my favorite quote of the century by Oscar Wilde, which says, "Life is too important to be taken seriously." So, speaking of life, today's topic is, drumroll please, dealing with elderly parents, which, which is my case. I know I've said time and time again, I always mention how I'm 55, so I don't know if I've spoken about my parents much at all, but they've been together 62 years, and they are up there in the years. My dad is 89, my mother is 82, and a lot of times I don't like to talk about other people's business, but this particular video I've been wanting to do, and I've been sort of on the fence about should I not? Excuse me, primarily because unfortunately about 2 years ago, my father had a stroke. Now, the good news, knock on wood, is that if you have a stroke, it's usually one side of the brain which affects the opposite side of your body. And when I think of the stereotypical stroke victim, you usually think of someone who's like paralyzed or partially paralyzed and can't walk, can't talk. That's not the case with my father. I forget which side of the brain it is, but the good news is that it's been 2 years ago. October was when it happened, and he can walk, he can talk, so he's actually doing well, all things considering. His short-term memory can sometimes be a little not totally there, but honey, he could tell you shit that happened a zillion years ago. And like most people of a certain age, once you get older, sometimes there's a tendency of getting fixated on things, or frankly being a pain in the butt about certain things. So he definitely has that going on. But when all is said and done, the good news is that he's doing well, and I'm fortunate, and I get that because a lot of my friends of my generation either only have one of their parents or don't have either of them. I'm lucky that I have both, and especially after that happened a couple of years ago, it was scary, and it still is, because I see where at that age he's not what he was, and since the stroke, obviously, you see where he's a little older and he's not as stable, still doing well, he can get around and whatnot, but at the same time that it's sad, it makes you appreciate things more. It makes you appreciate life more. And so I have hesitated to speak about this because as public as a person that I am, and you bitches know I talk about everything that I do freely, but there's something like this, because I have my moments where where I don't handle it well. And especially the first year, that I've had my moments in my life, where, socially I'll drink or smoke weed or do my certain extracurricular harder things. But, for 2020, for this year, I've basically been sober. But that first year that it happened after the stroke, I did find myself, not that I was going overboard with it, but suddenly in that year, it was the things that I was doing in terms of those extracurricular things were a little more frequent than what I'm used to doing. And I realized, I think a large part of that was my not wanting to deal with it, or escaping it, and now that I have been basically sober, it's so much more in my face, because there is no escaping it. And and then I think to myself, because there are times where suddenly he's not feeling as good, and they depend on me a lot, which I would do anything for my parents, and I can't be with them every minute, but they live up in the Bronx, I'm in Queens, but pretty steadily, at least once a week. The occasional time, if I can, I go twice a week. I go to see them and I speak to them every day. And, so even that in itself, I think to myself, I pretty much have to stay on a clean, healthy track. Like, even if I wanted to like drink or get fucked up or whatever, apart from the fact that I have no interest, but let's make believe that I did. The bottom line is I really shouldn't, because, you never know, at this stage, at any given moment, I could get a phone call saying that, something happened, and that happened not too long ago, a few months ago. He, my father is one to, I don't want to say minimize things, but, everything with him, like, even if he's not feeling great, he'll be like, oh, I'm okay. But a couple of months ago, he was not feeling good at all, and he suggested to my mother, I think I should go to the emergency room. And for him to say that is a big deal. So, thank God he went, and they did, whatever tests, and they kept him there overnight, and maybe even 2 nights, and just to make sure, and knock on wood, he was fine. But, even that was kind of fucked up too, because in this day and age with COVID going on, it's like, the ambulance picked them up, and when they got to the hospital, they brought my mother to a different waiting room, waiting area, which was not really where the emergency room was. So, unfortunately, my poor father was there alone. So it's kind of fucked up too, like, to have any kind of ailment during this pandemic, you really do, like, you end up alone. And that thought to me is, more upsetting than anything else. So, but, it's what it is. And I wasn't even sure if I wanted to do this video, but I thought to myself, you know what, when all is said and done, I always say at the beginning of these videos, life is too important to be taken seriously, and in a minute it's going to be over, which is true, but then at the same time, you never want to think of like your parents not being around, because no matter what, you're always going to be their little child. Even though I'm 55, they still call me their little lamb, and I'm their little boy, even though I'm a grown-ass man. But, you don't never want to think of your mommy and daddy not being with you, but that is the reality of life. So it just, I guess the whole point of this is to just say, if you do have your parents around, appreciate them, or, or even if you don't, look at it in a positive light, and remember all of the good things about them. So it's taken me some work to even get to this point that I could speak about it, and it's taken me this long to get to that level of, like, not being too upset about the fact that, they're that much closer. And then when you think about it, like, the older they get, the older you get. And, at the age of 55, I think to myself, Lord, it seemed like just yesterday I was 25. So then I think, well, my parents being 89 and 82, I bet you they think, wow, just yesterday I was 55. And, once they're gone, you're like next in line. So it just kind of makes you question your own mortality. But, knock on wood, he's fine, for the most part. They're both healthy, they're around, they're stubborn, just like me. Them bitches ain't going nowhere. And, and if and when the time comes that they do, I have to think that everything happens for a reason and when it's supposed to happen. And if you look at life that way, then it really isn't bad. And then it just kind of makes everything a lot better. So, anywho, that's my 2 cents with that. And just for my own therapeutic reasons, I just kind of felt like I needed to say that, because like I said, I'm so open about everything else, and that's the one thing that I haven't spoken about. And I think for myself, I needed to just get this out there. So anyway, if there's anyone else out there, dealing with elderly parents, and if maybe, they have health issues or they're dealing with things here and there, just remember that you can handle it, because the universe only throws you away what it knows you can handle. And just, appreciate every moment that they're around. Try not to get too frustrated. sometimes I see that with myself, because you know, it's almost like as your parents get older, then suddenly they become the child, and so there's a little bit of that going on. But I always tell myself, breathe, just breathe. You know, if you can breathe, it's not tight enough. But so I just, you know, I have to keep reminding myself to do that, and it's taught me a lot of patience, which is wonderful. So anywho, Mama Pooh, Papa Pooh, I love you too. I'm glad you're still around, and you know, glad that I can see you guys as much as I can. So anyway, guys, that's it. So this is a positive, uplifting thing. Appreciate life, appreciate your parents, appreciate yourself, and you know, you can handle this. We all got this. So alrighty, thanks so much for being here with me, for tuning in, for letting me say what I have to say. I love you all so much. Alrighty, bye.